Well, good afternoon and welcome. I'm delighted to see all of you. It's great to have this great turnout. I am Diane Dixon. I am the Assemblywoman in Assembly District 72, which extends from Seal Beach, Huntington Beach, Newport Beach, Laguna Beach, and then comes inland, Laguna Woods, Laguna Hills, Aliso Viejo, and Lake Forest. So are all of you my constituents? It's a pleasure to me. So you read my emails, so I appreciate you coming, and I think this you'll agree with me that this is a very important topic, and I'm thrilled to welcome Sharon Smith from the Insurance Commissioner's Office, and it is Sharon Smith, yeah. She'll be speaking with you in a moment. But first, I want to recognize and thank SoCo University for hosting us today, and I'm looking for Karen. Karen's right here in front of me. Karen Rogers-Bronstein.
Yes.
And just want to introduce Karen, and she could talk about this room. A lot of people ask about this room and the history behind it, and we're just so delighted to be here. Thank you so much for hosting us. So here, I'll turn the microphone over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming to SoCo University, and thank you for the introduction. Welcome to SoCo University of America and Founders Meeting Room. This is a space that embodies the institution's core principles of global citizenship, human rights, and peace. Our founder, Daisaku Ikeda, dedicated his life to fostering dialogue across cultures and nations. The names inscribed along the ceiling represent the world leaders, thinkers, and peacemakers with whom Mr. Ikeda engaged in meaningful conversations. They serve as a reminder of our commitment to bridging divides through open communication. We hope this unique setting inspires a thoughtful exchange as we engage in today's important discussion. And thank you for being here, and we look forward to a productive conversation.
Thank you, Karen. Yes, look at these names. I mean, it's such an honored place to be, to share an important topic. So I am delighted to facilitate this meeting for my constituents, for all of you, whether you're a constituent or not, for residents of the state of California who are concerned by the crisis in our insurance rates in California. We all know the news, you're experiencing it as homeowners, and I've wanted to make sure that residents in my district had an opportunity to meet with a representative, a senior level representative of the State Commissioner of Insurance, Laura. His office has provided Sharon Smith here, and we've talked on virtual meetings before, and is extremely capable to answer questions you might have. I will say, and Sharon may talk about this, but it's very timely. I just had an announcement here. I'm sure you will. Today's announcement from the Insurance Commissioner, a California Consumer Alert. Commissioner Lara continues bold insurance reform agenda with a landmark fair plan modernization. It was announced July 26, a couple days ago, that a breakthrough agreement containing a series of actions to modernize the California Fair Plan Association and the state's insurer of last resort as part of his ongoing efforts to stabilize the California insurance market and address the insurance crisis. So I will steal Sharon's thunder, but I look forward to you explaining this. This is a very important development. I will say, in Sacramento, I have met with the insurance commissioner. He has met with a number of us many times, but I was impressed with his commitment to do just what he's announced today and to really respond to the challenges of the California insurance market. I think this change will go a long way. Until I met him and talked with him, I really didn't know what was going on and how this was ever going to be resolved for the people, the homeowners in California. I am going to stick my neck out a little bit and say I have confidence and trust. He knows, he has heard loud and clear, and he's heard from legislative leaders, he's heard from all members of the legislature, this problem has to get fixed. And so I'm delighted that Sharon can be here today to help explain what is happening. She's an outreach analyst, and I will say that just having Sharon here is a sign of Commissioner Lara's commitment to residents by bringing people on his staff, senior level staff members, to the communities who request to hear from the insurance commissioner. So instead of being non-responsive, as some people could be, Commissioner Lara is definitely responsive. And so it's good to see you. And it's an honor to present his office here for you today. I want to thank Soka University for opening up this beautiful room, and Officer Rivera, who is here somewhere. There they are, keeping us safe, the California Highway Patrol. So thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it for being here to make sure that we all stay safe. And again, I want to commend the insurance commissioner for recognizing that we have a problem, a serious problem on this issue here in California. And in my district, especially, many of you, Aliso Viejo, Lake Forest, Laguna Beach, and Newport Beach have wildfire areas, and it is a challenge and a problem. I'm so grateful for the participation of Ms. Smith and from the Department of Insurance, and I will turn it over to you. My job today is to bring Commissioner Lara's office to you, and we will have an open Q&A session following her remarks. She'll go through a presentation, and I look forward to hearing what she has to say to give us an update. So let's welcome Sharon Smith. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Assemblymember Diane Dixon, for that introduction. A little close here. My name is Sharon Smith. I'm an outreach analyst based in San Diego, California. I have the South Orange County area, but your actual Commissioner Lara representative is Tanya Martin. She just couldn't be here today. But I want to explain a little bit about why we're in this situation with homeowners insurance, exactly what the department is doing, some things that you could do if you've been non-renewed, canceled, where we can help, and then go over some questions and answers if you still have some after that. So before we get into exactly what the laws, regulations, and things we're doing at the department, I want to talk about and understand exactly how we got to this place, right? So natural disasters and global inflation are creating stress on insurance markets and increases in insured losses and costs worldwide in a way that we just haven't ever seen before. And this isn't just happening here in California. This is happening at many other states. The only difference here is that California has a very unique wildfire risk. So that's where we're seeing those really big increases in homeowners insurance addressing that wildfire risk. We've also seen increased costs of rebuilding supplies, materials, labor shortages. Since the pandemic, the supply chain really hasn't fully recovered to pre-pandemic levels just yet. So we're still seeing shortages with labor. We're still seeing supplies taking a year plus to get there for auto parts or home parts. So all of that is also contributing to the issue with insurance. The other part of this is that reinsurance is becoming harder to find. And reinsurance is insurance for insurance companies. Insurance companies also buy insurance. And so reinsurance rates are based on the global market. And since catastrophes are happening globally, they're getting worse because of climate change, reinsurance rates are going up, meaning that our rates are going up because they're passing, because those insurance companies are also paying higher rates. So as we're seeing risk increase, costs increase, insurance companies are contracting. They have to protect their obligations. They have to be able to meet all 100% of consumer claims they write. And they're limiting new business because of that. Since Commissioner Lara took office in 2019, we've been consistently monitoring and analyzing the status and direction of insurance availability trends. The FAIR Plan has doubled to 3% of the market, becoming the insurer of first resort for many Californians instead of the insurance of last resort as it's intended to be. The FAIR Plan, it's important to note, is not a state agency. So the Department of Insurance does not sponsor the program. Taxpayer dollars don't go into the FAIR Plan. The FAIR Plan is run by insurance companies, and they're on the hook if there was claims larger than the FAIR Plan actually took in, they would be on the hook for those losses. So a growing FAIR Plan is a problem because a FAIR Plan concentrates some of the most highest risk properties just on one plan. And so again, if the FAIR plan has all of these high risk properties, it increases the chance that it's not going to be able to afford to pay those out if there was a catastrophic disaster. So if the FAIR plan goes insolvent, those insurance companies would again be on the hook. So that kind of uncertainty is really driving some of those decisions that you're seeing, like State Farm pulling out or restricting new policies. It's all of those things that are driving that further. As a direct result of how much risk that insurance companies have taken on in California, they've actually been downgraded from A&M Best. So they downgraded State Farm, AAA, Mercury, all because of the amount of risk they had taken on in California. And it's a really critical factor to know here that insurance companies aren't public utilities, they're not nonprofits, these are for-profit companies. They're looking to make a profit, right? And they will not write you a policy if they cannot fully cover 100% of consumer claims, cover their expenses, and also earn a fair return as well. So everyone is harmed when an insurance company goes insolvent because it can't pay its claims. We all feel that in the insurance market, not just the ones that aren't able to get their claims paid. So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. All right, so a little bit more California context. These slides show that 7 out of 12 insurance companies have either paused or restricted their new policies, even though that most of them have pending or approved rate increases, showing that the problem is not only going to be solved by increasing prices. Over the past 10 years, insurance companies have done far worse in California than nationally by almost every measure. During those years, California experienced 9 out of 10 of the most devastating wildfires in our state's history. For every dollar in home and auto premiums that insurance company collected last year, insurance company paid out about an average of $1.10 in claims and expenses. So it doesn't take much math there. If they're taking in $1 and paying out $1.10, they're losing money here. So again, for-profit companies, it really becomes a huge problem. And because of the climate change impacts and accelerating more and more every day, we're even seeing the Park Fire right now, the 5th largest up north, we need to take actions that expand insurance coverage, insurance availability. To reduce the risk of major losses in the industry, Commissioner Lara introduced the Saver from Wildfires framework. It's going to be a 3-step system to protect your home, your surroundings, and community, which in turn provides customers with discounts and transparency about your risk rating. Under this regulation, we expect to see more businesses, homeowners, and communities making investments in wildfire safety. More businesses, a greater community resilience as well, reduced losses from wildfires, and more insurance coverage for mitigated properties. One more time. There we go. It's important to note that the CDI does not have any authority to actually force insurers to write coverage. So this regulation really attacks the root cause of non-renewals, which is risk. So with a more accurate pricing of insurance,